When I start talking about the modern controlled disclosure movement, I'm naturally going to start with David Grush. He is the chosen face of this era, the one placed in front of Congress with a steady voice and a trembling emotion that feels genuine and vulnerable. He looks like somebody who's witnessed something that fractured him internally, someone who wants to do the right thing, someone who feels a moral pressure that has been eating him from the inside. That sincerity makes the public trust him. It gives his words gravity. It gives his pauses meaning. People look at him and think, finally, someone with integrity has stepped into the light. But sincerity does not equal transparency. And within a controlled disclosure environment, sincerity is the most valuable illusion of all. Before going any deeper, you have to look at the most basic, grounded facts. Grusch spent his entire career inside intelligence agencies. He worked at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and in other classified environments for years. And even now, after coming forward with world-shaking claims, he still holds an active security clearance. That alone should make people question the story. Real whistleblowers do not keep their clearances. Real whistleblowers are pushed out, silenced, and punished. But Grush remains in good standing, which tells you one thing. Whatever narrative he's bringing to the public, the system is not threatened by it. In fact, he's being allowed to speak because his message serves a specific, important purpose. This is the reoccurring pattern with many of these so-called whistleblowers. They are lifelong intelligence personnel presenting information that conveniently aligns with the agenda of the very structure they claim to expose. Grush is not lying. That's exactly why he works. He's not performing. He's not acting. He's not constructing a story. He's speaking from a place of genuine belief. He's the product of an information environment designed to generate controlled perceptions. He's not a whistleblower who escaped the labyrinth. I believe he is well aware he's still inside it. To understand him, you must understand the world that shaped him. Institutions that deal with secrecy do not work with truth. They work with narratives. Inside those circles, information is arranged with intent. Nothing is presented as it actually is. Everything is presented as it needs to be seen. Intelligence communities are not places where truth flows freely. They are places where reality is rationed. Information is sliced into compartments, fenced by access levels, oaths, and threats. People inside know there are gaps. They feel the missing parts, and they get frustrated. But they are forced to build their worldview from whatever fragments they are allowed to see and verify. Over time, that limited set of fragments becomes their reference field. They know there is more, but they cannot reach it. So they draw conclusions from what is in front of them and from what other trusted colleagues can confirm. That feedback loop creates a sense of solidity. Not because they see the whole picture, but because everyone around them is working in the same restricted map. The mind then does what it always does. It fills in the unknowns with assumptions that match the known data. The result feels coherent, even when it is incomplete by design. This is where Grush is speaking from. His frustration with compartmentalization is real. His conviction is real. He believes what he is saying because inside his slice of the system, it all fits together. But his confidence is not proof that he has the core. It's proof that his fragment is internally consistent and reinforced by the environment he came from. And yes, some and most of what he shares is true. It has to be. That's how controlled disclosure works. Real details, real programs, real wreckage, real biology, but wrapped in a structure that keeps the public orbiting around the surface. Enough truth to be compelling, but never enough to walk straight into the actual center of what is going on. Controlled revelation is always like this. Enough truth to be credible, never enough to free anyone. Grusch's testimony is entirely physical. It is anchored in machinery, metallurgy, forensic biology, reverse engineered artifacts, and bureaucratic secrecy. It is the same physical narrative that has been fed to military minds since the 1940s. Crafts and bodies, machines and pilots, programs and cover-ups. A story large enough to shock the public, yet small enough to keep them blind. Notice what he never mentions. He doesn't talk about consciousness. He doesn't talk about the astral. He doesn't talk about the synthetic intelligence that operates outside physical perception. He doesn't talk about the Federation. He never touches immersion, avatars, or the soul-based entry systems behind incarnation. He never approaches the metaphysical architecture behind the phenomenon. This absence is not intentional concealment. It's honest ignorance. He was only ever given access to a very specific slice of the story. Enough to shock him, enough to unsettle him, enough to make him feel like he had a moral obligation to speak. But he never had enough to understand the phenomenon behind its physical costume. When he encountered shocking information, someone within the system provided the interpretation. They told him what he was looking at. They told him what it meant. They gave him the conclusion. And because the human mind becomes most vulnerable at the moment of shock, that interpretation fused itself with the emotional memory. It became part of the experience. The person then believes the conclusion came from within. This is how you generate a whistleblower who feels like a hero while still thinking inside a pre-built conceptual cage. This is why Grusch functions so well. He's not delivering propaganda. He's delivering conviction. He reinforces the structure by appearing to rebel against it. He tells the public that the government is hiding craft, which implies a purely physical extraterrestrial presence. He tells the public that bodies were recovered, which implies that non-human intelligence must be biological. He tells the public that the government misled Congress, which implies that the government should be the one to resolve the situation. He tells the public that secrecy is the enemy, which implies that structured disclosure is the solution. Everything he reveals strengthens the physical, material, controlled narrative. Nothing he says escapes the sandbox. He prepares the public for a very specific type of contact. Okay? Contact that appears physical. Contact that may arrive in craft. Contact that involves bodies. Contact that demands official management. Contact that reinforces state authority. Contact that feels dangerous but never metaphysical. He is the introduction to the performance. He's the emotional doorway. And that is the role he was shaped to fulfill. Seen through metaphysical lens, the pattern becomes obvious. He's the man who walked into a room full of curated secrets, felt the emotional weight of them, and carried those secrets outward, believing he held the truth. but he carries only the fragment of the truth that the structure is comfortable revealing. The fragment that keeps the masses anchored to a physical explanation. The fragment that hides the astral, that hides the federation, that hides the artificial intelligences that mimic contact. It hides the density shifts, the non-physical entities. It hides the immersion systems. It hides the real mechanics behind incarnation. It hides the system behind the system. He is sincere, he is honest, he is emotional, and he is entirely framed. David Grush is not exposing the structure. The structure is exposing itself through him in a controlled format. That is why he is the perfect credibility anchor. Join me in the next episode when I talk about Luis Elizondo and his role in the controlled narrative. Thank you for watching.